there, it's me LFonTV, and you're probably wondering why I'm wearing this Santa hat for today's Storytime video. Well, today I'm going to be reading a Christmas story. Perhaps you can guess it? What am I going to read today? I'm going to go look for a clue. I'll just send the clue in pictures. So, today I'll be reading to you How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. And here's how it goes. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right, or it could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. "And they're hanging their stockings," he snarled with a sneer. "Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here." Then he growled, with his grinchy fingers nervously drumming, "I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming." For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, noise, noise. That's the one thing he hated, the noise, 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 Anakin! Wait, I had no idea where that came from. Those look like some fun toys, though. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast and feast, and they'd feast. And then they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. Why would he not stand food? That's strange. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more Grinch thought, "I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?" Then he had an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. "I know just what to do," the Grinch laughed in his throat. Then he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. And he chuckled and clucked. "What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick." Santa: "All I need is a reindeer." The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, which means very hard to find, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one." So he called his dog Max. Then he took on some red thread, and he tied a big horn on top of his head. That's interesting. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramble sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze to their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in first. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, only for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. Then the Who's stockings hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first thing to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the room, and he took every present: pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plum. Then he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch, very nimbly, stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. What's Who hash? General Who Electric. That must be a fridge. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. Must be glue. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "we'll stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree. Then he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a Who, a small Who, Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and slick, he thought up a lie and thought it up quick. "Why, my dear little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there is a light on this tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her on the head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wires, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Not many people will eat that. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the taggings and the tinsel, the trimmings and the trappings. Thousands feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Po-po to the Who's," he was grinchingly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, then all the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing, without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. somehow or other, it came just the same. Really? That's interesting. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little more. Then what happened? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. Then he brought back the toys, the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. The end.
Well, that's the end of the story. I hope you've learned something, that Christmas doesn't exactly come from a store. It always means something more. Merry Christmas, everyone!